Good morning, everyone. Welcome to IASSS, the International Association of Student Surgical Societies UAE chapter meeting today. And today we have our doctors with us who are going to speak on navigating the different internship pathways in the UAE. Thank you all for coming here. I hope I hope you're all able to have a good overview and have a good idea, a general overview about the different internship pathways if you're aiming for any pathways in UAE. Before that, let me give a small introduction to IASSS. It is a student surgical society, and they serve as an essential function in furthering the field of surgery. And the core objectives are including but not limited to promoting and facilitating surgical education, aiming to serve as a hub for the exchange of ideas between the world's future surgeons, fostering a pre-specialist passion for surgery, global surgery, and ensuring equitable surgical education and care for all. Also about the IASS's UAE chapter, which we just started a few months ago, and this is our first event. We are glad you're here with us. At IASS's UAE, we're passionate about advancing the field of surgery. Here, by fostering early surgical exposure and leadership, we aim to shape the next generation of surgeons. We aim to connect student surgical societies within UAE and helping ensure that every aspiring surgeon can network with peers locally and globally. And as a UAE surgical chapter, we could host symposiums, workshops, etc. That in the long run will empower surgical education and make sure that future surgeons have a good network to connect to and learn from. This is our team who made this day possible. Myself, and then who's the national delegate, Dr. Catherine. Other than that, shout out to our medical student Farah Ali, who's a communications officer, and our other doctors, Dr. Maryam, Khaled, Dr. Suhaila, Ahmed, Dr. Asil, Dr. Ahila, and Dr. Omnia. They made this day possible. So thank you to our full team. And to be a part of this team, I believe you can also register. For the next term, interested students can register and hope to make a change. And you can become a member by scanning this link, scanning this QR code, and it should take you to the IASSS registration page. You can also follow us on our social media and connect to us. And you can connect to us, reach out to us. This is the QR code for our social media link on Instagram. And you can also email us at iasss.uae@gmail.com. And today our agenda will be to talk about MBRU internship, DHA internship, GMU internship, EHS internship, DOH, and finally an overview of the interview and CV tips. And today we have with us Dr. Suhaila Ahmed, Dr. Maryam Khaled, Dr. Samreen Fathima, and Dr. Mohammad Amer, who will be leading us in today's session. Give the floor over to you, Dr. Suhaila.
Thank you, Dr. Catherine. So we'll be starting with the Dubai internship programs. So mainly we'll be talking about the MBRU and the DHA programs. So let's begin. So what we'll be covering over each of these internships is the timeline, the academic criteria, the documents required, and the selection process. So regarding the timeline, this is for this year. So the year where we applied, when the online applications opened around January 22 of this year, and the deadline was almost 3 months later. And you can see that they've given an extension of another 5 days for the pending applications. And then you have no interviews for medical internships, but if you're a dental candidate, then you do have personal interviews. Then you have your cross match, which I'll be discussing afterwards, and then your conditional admission offers, and then you will commence on August 26th. So usually it's around these dates. They do stick by these dates quite often. I mean, it's not going to be changing in months, but more or less the same as such. So regarding the admissions criteria, mainly we'll be dividing it into academic and English criteria. So your academic criteria, of course, is going to be your bachelor's degree, which should be within 2 years of graduating. and your IFOM clinical exam results. So if you're an international medical graduate, your ECE report is also required to evaluate these transcripts and have a standard GPA. So you're going to have to apply to for the ECE report. Now, IFOM as such is mentioned in the criteria as one of the not compulsory criteria. That means it's not compulsory to have the IFOM results. However, it plays a major role in contributing to your shortlisting score. That means the score in which you will be ranked and offered the internship itself. So you need to make sure that you have this to give you a better hand in score, getting a higher rank among all the students that apply. So even though it's not compulsory, it's highly recommended to give this exam, especially if your university doesn't already offer it. Then you need to either contact your university or you need to apply for it on your own. So it's important to prepare for it well and give it a try. And that's about the IFOM. And then you have your English criteria. So your accepted exams include your IELTS, TOEFL, and MSAT. So these are the minimum scores that you need to have for each of these exams. And also kindly note that the graduates of UAE universities are exempted from the validity requirement. That means you need to have the result before you most likely have submitted this result for your admission into your university when you first join in year one. So you can request it from your university. But I want to mention that a document from the university stating that the degree is in English will not be accepted. So the English exam results and the scores need to be submitted. So if you haven't already done the exam before, because usually the exam is only valid for 2 years. So if you're not a UAE university graduate, then you have to do the exam again and give a valid result. Regarding the documents required for the MBR internship, we have, of course, your basic identification documents, which is your color photograph, and then your valid passport copy, Amer's ID, and residency permit, if you do have it. Then you have academic, which usually is the same for like MBRU and DHA. So you have your undergraduate degree certificate, and you have your undergraduate academic transcript. So usually, if you can get it attested from the Ministry of Education, it's really good. But if you're not able to, then you can send an email to MBRU and mention that you could not get it attested because of so and so reason. Because this year they were quite lenient with it. They didn't make sure that we submitted attested copies. So maybe next year it could be different. So always like email them your English proficiency test and the copy of your CV. Now, in addition to all those documents in MBRE, what's different is that they have, apart from your CV, they have a separate section for your portfolio. So these are like areas where you need to upload on your own. So you have your IFOM clinical exam science certificate, which is the exam result itself, and your research activity. So this is apart from what you include in your CV, you need to separately upload proof of your research activity. So, for example, it can be like writing proposals or collecting data, analyzing or writing a manuscript. So you need to provide a copy of your IRB or Institutional Review Board approval letter, a copy of the research proposal, and a letter from your research supervisor stating what you contributed to the research. Then publication in a peer-reviewed journal, you need to provide a link to the article and a copy of the manuscript. Then presentation in a scientific event, which is either a conference or a symposium or a workshop. So this is basically any kind of community engagement event that is beneficial to the general public, and it needs to be within 2 years of entry. Sorry, it should be within since the entry to the medical or dental school. And of course, you need to have only 2 entries are accepted. Then we have voluntary, social, and community activities, which is also only 2 entries. Then extracurricular courses that are obtained since entry to medical school. So this includes your BLS or your ACLS or any other certificates that you've gotten from attending courses. And then academic awards related to academic or research achievements obtained since entry to medical school. Now, the selection process itself, it's divided into two parts. So your GPA, which is going to be, so when this application opens in January, most of us would not have given our final exam. So what percentage you're going to be submitting is going to be your cumulative percentage over your first, second, third, and fourth years. So that is your GPA, because your final year is not going to be, the final year results are not going to be out. So that's what you're going to be submitting. So that's 60%. And then your portfolio is around 40%. So all aspects of your application, including your GPA and other academic and scholarly activities listed on your resume, will be considered, because this year it looked like they were pretty keen on knowing like exactly what you have done in your CV and what kind of activities you have uploaded on your portfolio. So it's always better, and I would recommend working on your portfolio or CV from day one itself, so that when the application does open in January, you can just keep on making edits and revising your CV instead of starting from scratch, because that's what they're looking for mostly. Because the thing is, you can't really change your marks now, because whatever you'll be submitting is whatever you've already done before. So your exams that you've done before. So what you can focus on is your portfolio and see how you can improve it. So regarding the portfolio, there's a specific points or a grading system that the MBRU gives for your portfolio, and it's out of 40 points. So my advice is to score as much as those 40 points as you can. So your IFOM exam depends on the grade you get, that much of points you get. So for example, if you get above 81, you will get 3 points. But if it's between 41 to 80, it's 2 points. And if you score less than 40, which is, I believe, the passing mark, then you get 1 point. Then your research, whatever you upload, you will get 4 points for that. And then your publication is 7 points, which is actually the most number of points awarded for anything. So it's always good to focus on that. Again, it's okay to not submit your contribution to any of these things. It's not going to not allow you to submit the application, but you need to make sure that you have something for everything, even though they say it's not compulsory, because that's how you'll be graded in their ranking system. Presenting in conference is 4 points. Your volunteering, maximum 2 activities, is 4 points each. And courses is 4 points each, again, maximum 2 courses. And academic awards is 6 points. So what is cross matching? So cross matching is basically when the same candidate is applying to more than one entity in the UAE. For example, I have applied to MBRU, and I have applied to DHA, and I have applied to EHS, for example. Cross match is a day where these entities will come together and they will sit and they will decide about each candidate. So they will pick out each candidate and they will say, okay, so MBRU has received this application and DHA or EHS has received this application, and then they will sit and decide which institute wants to accept you. So for example, you are shortlisted and ranked by more than 2 or more entities, then you will be contacted and you will be given the opportunity to select your preferred entity for training. So once you've confirmed your preference, the other authorities will remove your name from the list and offer that position to someone else. Now, about the cross match itself, I want to mention that uh, even though it's as simple as this, sometimes it's unpredictable. Even when we've asked our seniors, they don't have a clear idea of exactly how the institutes are selecting us and how they are rejecting us. So that is still a little bit confusing as to how they're doing this entire process. But whatever it is from the MBRU side, whether you are accepted or rejected or waitlisted, you will always get an email. So that is that. So that's about the MBRU internship program. We'll be moving on to the DHA program. I want to mention that I had applied to the DHA program. However, I did not attend the interviews as such. So I've gotten the help of my colleagues, Dr. Anam Kabir and Dr. Misbah Bohra, and I've taken their help in creating this PowerPoint. So I hope it'll be useful. So again, the same things that we'll be going through. We'll have the same timeline, academic criteria, documents required, and selection process. Compared to the MBRU process, DHA is quite straightforward. They don't have the entire portfolio thing and things like that. So it's a much less tedious process. But again, the website is where the problem comes. The website is quite lagging. So you might face some technical issues with it. But other than that, it should be easy. So the timeline for this year is usually the DHA applications open early, but for this year they opened quite late. They opened on May 29th, and they only had 2 weeks for the application, and the application closed on June 14th. And once your application was submitted, you had calls for interviews from the last week of July. So the results of the interviews will be announced according to the hospital you interview at. So that means that each hospital that you interview at will have their own timeline as to when they want to announce the results of their interviews. So we don't really know exactly when they will announce. So that's what I wanted to put out. Then moving on to the admission criteria. We have the academic and English criteria. So academic, bachelor's degree, of course, that's again within 2 years of graduating. You don't really need the I-form for the DHA medical internship application. Then the English criteria, the accepted exams are IELTS, TOEFL, and OET. So if your exam has exceeded the 2-year validity period for DHA, the thing which is different is that compared to MBRU, your even if you had done the exam before and you are a UAE graduate, you are not exempted from the validity of this exam. So you're going to, when you submit your DHA internship application, so not only do you have to include your original score, so whenever you have done it, either you have done it before or you have recently done it. If you have recently done it, then it's valid. But if you are UAE graduate and you have exceeded the 2-year validity period, then you have to submit, in addition to the result, you need to submit a promise letter stating that you will provide the valid exam result upon acceptance into the DHA internship program. And this is something very important. So you need to be prepared for giving the exam once you get selected. So even before your interview, once you have been selected by the DHA application, medical internship program, they will send you an email asking you to renew your English proficiency exam. And then only will they give you the interview. Then the documents required are almost the same documents as MBRU, except for they have a section for extra attachments where you can include letters of recommendation. But other than that, it's mostly the same. Then regarding the selection process, they have two parts. So we have the online application and we have the interviews. So the online application, you'll be asked to choose one DHA hospital as your preferred choice to intern at. They have a couple of choices. So this year, I believe it was Aster, Suleiman Habib, and Fakih Hospital. You had also Medcare, Saudi German Hospital, and one more, I believe. And a couple more. Basically, the thing is that each year the number of hospitals, it keeps changing, and the thing is that even if you choose one of the hospitals listed, your CV will be circulated among all DHA hospitals nonetheless. So even the ones that are not listed in that list, you will be offered interviews. So you need to be prepared for that. So most of the times, if you put a choice, there is a possibility you will get into that hospital's interview, but there's also a possibility you might not. So it depends on your luck, to be honest. And the interview, so after you submit the application, within a month's time, you will get calls from the hospital you've chosen or not, depends on your luck. Your interview might be in cycles. So for example, you might be called in for a day and your interview is in the cycle 1 or cycle 2. So you can be belonging to the first set of people who are going for the interview or the second set of people. So you can get called for either one. So regarding the interview itself, the interview, you have 8 to 10 people in each cycle that will accompany you. You will be given your own time slot, and that will be around 10 to 15 minutes. And one thing to remember is that you can expect a lot of technical delays because this time they said that they had to, wait for 1 to 2 hours sometimes because there were issues from DHA's end. And sometimes your interview might be cancelled too. So just be prepared for that. What do they ask in the interview? So it depends on the hospitals. So these are just general information that I've gotten from whoever attended the interviews. Sometimes some say that the hospitals focused on medical related questions, some of them focused on general topics. So it's always better to prepare yourself for both. But for definitely for other specifics, for example, specific to the hospital that you're interviewing at, it's always advisable to consult the seniors who are currently doing their internship at that specific hospital to learn about the questions that they were asked. So after the interview, so once you have given the interview, you usually get a response within 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on the hospital. So there's no like set date. So you can either get a police clearance email or a rejection email. So the thing is, this year, the people who gave the interview and got rejected got a clear rejection email, but the people who got accepted first got a police clearance email. They didn't get the acceptance offer. So the ones who are applying for the DHA medical internship program, they said that getting the police clearance email is equivalent to getting the offer. But again, this is subjective. So, but if you're rejected, you will definitely receive a rejection email. That's for sure. So suppose if you got rejected after an interview with one hospital, there's definitely no reason to be disheartened, because as I mentioned, your application will be sent to other DHA facilities, and they don't really mention which hospital they'll be sending your application to, but definitely whichever hospital they do send your application across, they will call you again for an interview. That's all from the Dubai internship side, and I give the floor to Dr. Samreen now. Thank you so much.
Before we hand over the floor to Dr. Samreen, Dr. Suhaila, I believe someone had asked a question. What type of certifications do they accept? Are online courses counted for MBRU? Do you have a reply? Do you have an answer for that?
Yes. So, regarding I believe this question is about the courses. So, yes, online courses are definitely counted. So whatever you do in like Coursera or any other online courses are accepted. But I would say that as I mentioned about the cross matching and the shortlisting and everything, it's always better to have um the BLS and ACLS in addition to your online courses, because you have enough time till the application opens, so you can get them done if you haven't already, because BLS and ACLS is something that they will also look for during residency. So if you haven't done them already, it's good to do it now. Is there any other questions?
Okay, so there are other questions that are in the chat box. Someone got done with interviews and got police clearance. Does it mean that they're selected?
So as I mentioned, whatever I've gotten the information from the ones that are doing the DHA medical internship now, they have applied. They have told that the rejection email is sent for those who are rejected from the hospital itself, but the ones who are accepted, that's what they're thinking, because they haven't received the rejection email. So it's by default is what I have heard. But again, you need to talk with the hospital that interviewed you. I would suggest emailing them and asking them about whether you've gotten accepted or not. I think that's a better way to confirm that you have gotten accepted.
Okay, the next question is, how about DH interviews? Are they in person or hybrid?
All right. So about data interviews, usually they are in person, but if for any reason you are traveling or not able to attend online or offline, then you can request them to make it online. But this is only in very rare cases. So it's not an online interview, but they do offer the option for someone who's not able to attend for a valid reason.
Okay, the next questions, examples of online course sites and examples of academic awards.
So online course sites, to be honest, you can search for any online courses. You have Coursera, there are courses in WHO. These two are what I know, and those are the ones that I did. But there are also paid courses. For example, there's from Harvard and Stanford. These are courses that you need to pay for to get the certificate, but it's a good certificate. So if you genuinely want to invest in a good certificate from a good reputed institution, then these websites are also available if you want. And academic awards, that the examples of that include, for example, being listed in the dean list or getting the best paper for your research or best research or things like that. But they also include, like, for example, if you have gotten like distinction for any of the subjects that you studied in medical school, or you got a scholarship, or you've gotten excellence or something like that, then those are also accepted.
Okay, doctor, thank you. I think we'll hand over the floor to Dr. Samreen.
All right, thank you so much.
So, good morning. My name is Samreen Fathima, and today I'll be talking about internship opportunity at Tumbe University Hospital. So, Tumbe University Hospital is a private teaching hospital that is located in Ajman, and I'll be first covering about the application process. For the application, if you write GMU in any web browser, you'll come up across the Gulf Medical University website. And if you go into it, you will see the admissions column. Under that, if you click on the register or apply online session, it will directly take you to the link that is required for application. And this is the timeline for the application when it opens. This is based on this year, 2024. and it's usually remains the same, but it might change or might not change the next year. And this timeline is mentioned in the website. The application this time opened on 15th of March, and the deadline was till 15th of June. And the interviews, a tentative date was given from 13th June to 7th July. In my case, or from this year, the interview started from 1st of July. Regarding the documents that are required for application, you would require an attested degree certificate, and you have to have a copy of a detailed transcript. A valid BLS certificate is desirable but not mandatory. You would require a recent passport size photo, a letter of recommendation, and two letters of recommendation are required, and a copy of an English proficiency certificate, either it could be an IELTS, TOEFL, or MSAT English score, a copy of a valid passport, as well as a valid visa and Emirates ID for UAE residents. And you should also upload a copy of your CV. So regarding the interview process, before the interview date, you will be notified 1 week through your email. And it takes place in Tumbe University Hospital, and it's also a face-to-face interview. I would recommend you to go through all the examinations and procedures. Regarding the regarding the fee structure for the internship, it would cost 30,000 plus VAT for GME graduates, and for outside graduates, it is 40,000 plus VAT. And there's a training license fee which you have to pay, which is 3,300, which is not included in the fees mentioned above. I'll talk about the internship overall, how it is. It is accredited by the National Institute for Health Specialities, and the duration is 1 year. It is given 2 months for surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, obstetric, OBG. Then electives of 3 months of choice. You will get 14 days of annual leave and 7 days of sick leave. About the interview process, after the interview process, within 1 to 2 weeks, you will get your acceptance offer. They will ask you to submit additional documents like medical tests and the training license fee, and you have to start applying for the training license fee. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Samreen. Do you have any questions for Dr. Samreen? I believe there are none. I think we'll hand over the stage to Dr. Maryam.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me share my
Good
screen.
morning.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it is visible.
So, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I know the idea of applying for internships can feel like you're going through a maze, but don't worry. I'm here to guide you through it step by step. So first, we'll start with EHS application process. So this usually kicks off around mid-April and goes on until May. So you'll find the application link on their website. And as you begin filling out your application, you'll notice this neat little progress bar showing you how much you've completed. It's kind of like a video game, but instead of saving the princess, you're saving your future. So the application will ask for details in several areas: your personal information, contact details, education, and qualification. So here you can see, here you add your personal information, your contact details, and then questions and then your education qualifications. And then you'll have to make some attachments as well. And you have to make sure that you are filling out every section with care. Double check everything, attach the required documents. These are the required documents that are needed: a copy of your valid UAE ID card, BLS certificate, a copy of your medical school certificate, transcript, passport, UAE residency, and then any personal details form, your CV, your passport size photographs. And then after that, you need to make an application fee of around 200 dirham. And once your application is submitted, it goes into review. And usually you'll get the results in July. And the best part, there are no interviews for this one. So for this one, the entire process is really simple. So now let's switch gears and talk about the DOH application process. The application window typically opens in March. My advice, start your application as soon as possible. Once you submit it, they'll review it pretty quickly and might ask you to make changes. These changes need to be made before the application deadline, so do stay on top of it. And then to begin, you'll need to create an account. You go to their website and they will direct you to this website. You will have to make an account on the DOH. And then just like with EHS, you'll have to fill out all the necessary information and attach your documents. Once everything is completed, okay, you fill out all the required areas and then you make the payment and then also make the changes. Remember, again, you have to do this before the deadline. Before the deadline, when you submit your application and you pay the fees, they will directly, mostly within 1 to 2 days, they will tell you the changes to be made. Okay, and then you have to make the changes and then upload it again. And if there are again any problems, they will tell you. All of this has to be sorted out before the deadline. So if the deadline day is over and they're telling you to make changes and all, yeah, after that, it's too late. And then once everything is completed, including the payment, you'll have to wait for the data flow confirmation. So data flow confirmation, you can see this, okay, because mine was data flow verified. This is done from their side. So this is after like the deadline has gone away. So you don't have to worry about this. They will usually go through all of your documents and verify everything, and then they'll send you an email once it's done. So keep an eye on your Gmail. After that, you wait for the date when you can start booking interview slots. These are the attachments that are needed. The photo, again, it's same to EHS. Okay. So after you wait for the day for when you can start booking interview slots, this is where things get a bit tricky. You'll need to select 5 hospitals. This is not the entire list of hospitals that are there, but you can only choose 5 hospitals. And this is really important because you can only book interviews at these hospitals. So you need to consider the factors like the number of available seats. You can see all these numbers. These are the available seats at each hospital. And then also like housing options, and then accordingly make your decision. Now the booking interview. Now this is actually like a Cinderella moment, and be sure that they mention the date on which you can book the interview slot. That date is really important. Again, why this is a Cinderella moment? When the date arrives to book the interviews, you need to be ready and act really, really fast. So as soon as the clock strikes 12, you have to channel your inner Cinderella and run to book those interviews. Trust me, you don't want to wake up at dawn and find all the good slots taken. Some of my friends learned this the hard way. For me, it was like a scene from an entire movie. My friends were calling me, they were messaging me, and they were like, "Oh, like Maryam, book your slots ASAP." And during the time for the interviews, I had my exams in Ra. So I had the luxury to choose the book slots strategically on the days that were easy for me to travel from Ras Al Khaimah to Abu Dhabi. So plan ahead and don't wait until the last minute. So once you've booked your interview dates and hit the submit button, each hospital will send you email with instructions for that interview day. So keep a close eye on your email for these details. They'll tell you where to go, when to arrive, and any other important information. And that means if you get an email from them, okay, about for example, on day X is your interview. Okay, even on day X, when you wake up in the morning, open your email and check, because they do make last minute changes sometimes. Okay, so now for the interview day, okay, on the big day, the questions can vary. Most of the time, they'll focus on you as an individual. So it's a really good idea to research common interview questions beforehand. Like, for example, tell me about yourself. Okay, what sets you apart from the other candidates? Tell something, 3 good things about yourself, 3 weak points of you, etc. So it's good to like prepare these answers beforehand. And then sometimes they might throw in medical questions. Like they might give you a case and they'll be like, okay, take history. Or they'll give you a case scenario and they'll mostly target common medical conditions. They'll give you a case scenario and they might be like, okay, how will you treat this patient? What are your differentials? And the most important aspect, ethical questions. Now, ethical questions, almost everyone will ask you about these. Questions can vary. Like, for instance, you are at a hospital, okay? These are some of the examples, okay? You are at a hospital, and the senior resident, okay, has misbehaved with another colleague. What will you do? Okay? A doctor has prescribed wrong medications in front of you. What will you do? Okay? And so and so patient comes, okay? They are angry, they are doing this. How will you overcome this? What will you do? Okay? And one of the most important things to remember is you are an intern, so your answer should be like, because uh I did get one of these questions, and I was told that I am an intern, so I have to be like, as an intern, I would go to my senior, my who is responsible for me, and then go and tell them, and then accordingly do it. As well for the treatments, I can't directly do it by myself because I'm an intern. So I will go to my senior, I will tell them, and after they agree with it and they give me the permission, only then can I go and prescribe the treatment. Okay. So be prepared for anything during the interviews. After you are done with your interviews, you will have to wait for the MEAD applicant ranking day. So this is where you rank the hospitals you interviewed at based on your preferences. So around beginning of July, after you've ranked all your hospitals, then in the beginning of July, you'll find out if you've matched into a program. If you're lucky enough to match in more than one emirate, you'll receive an email saying you've cross-matched, and then you'll need to choose one. And then after you've confirmed your internship, the hospital will take over, sending you emails about the documents you need to provide and the schedule for your internship. So just keep following their instructions and you'll be all set. Um, and before I wrap up, if some of the instructions change, don't panic. Just make sure you follow the latest updates on their website. And that's it. I hope this journey through the internship application would be easy for you guys. And remember, the key is to stay organized, be proactive. After all, we're all in this together. Okay, and I hope every one of you lands the internship that's just right for you. Good luck, and may the odds be in your favor.
Thank you, Dr. Maryam. This is very useful. There are a few questions. People have asked, what's the fees for DOH internship?
The fees for DOH internship is around 30,000 dirhams.
Okay. Can you apply for both DHA and DOH?
Now, you can, but there's a catch, okay? So the thing is, DHA, they announced the results really late, okay? For example, DOH, for us, our results were told to us in the beginning of July, okay? And DHA is really late. And the thing is, they give you a deadline, okay? So maybe within 1 to 2 days, you have to accept it. If you don't accept DOH, you have lost that seat. So you have lost your seat in DOH. Now, if you think that you have gotten into DHA when you're not even sure, this is a really big risk you're taking because you're not sure if you got selected into DHA and you have lost a potential seat that you had in DOH, which was confirmed. So, yeah, that's the issue. So, if you get into DOH, you'll have to, this is something that you have to think about. Do you want to keep DOH or lose it for assuming that you might get into DHA.
Okay, thank you, doctor. How about what are the fees for EHS?
For EHS, it's the same fees. It's 30,000.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. If there are any other questions, I hope it will be addressed later. We'll finally hand over the floor to Dr. Mohammad Amer.
So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, doctor, we can see your screen.
Yeah, and is my camera working or?
I don't think so. It's still with UCam. There's an image plays of your camera.
Let me try one more time. Just a second. Just a second.
In the meantime, Dr. Suhaila, can you re-explain the English exam criteria for DHA, please?
So, right, for the DHA English criteria, so any one of the 3 exams was listed before. I believe it was IELTS and TOEFL and OET. What I wanted to clarify is that, like, unlike MBRU, where the 2-year validity for the graduates of UAE universities is exempted, basically, even if you did your exam 2 years back, like more than 2 years back, which is probably when you joined, that certificate is still valid when you apply to MBRU, but that certificate is not valid when you apply to DHA. So they would require you to do the exam. For example, if you did IELTS, you would have to do IELTS again if you get accepted into the program. So when you're applying for the application, not only do you need to include your old result, which has expired, but in addition to that, you need to include a promise letter stating that, for example, like, dear DHA Medical Internship Program, I give my full I take full responsibility to provide the valid English proficiency exam results once I have been accepted into the DHA Medical Internship Program. And then once you've been accepted, meaning when you get an email back saying that your application has been accepted, then you need to take the English proficiency exam as soon as possible, because only then will you get the interviews and things like that. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you, doctor. Dr. Amer, is it ready?
Yeah, I can begin now.
Okay.
So just give me a second. So my camera is working now, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So screen is visible, yes?
Yes, it is.
All right. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm going to be talking primarily just about the internship in general. I'm going to be covering things like interview skills, how to prepare your CV for the internship applications, and so on. These are points that, even though they're kind of widespread, anywhere you apply, you're going to need a CV. Anywhere you apply, you're going to have to do an interview. Unfortunately, a lot of people still struggle with these points and still struggle with these things, and I just kind of wanted to clarify a bit of misinformation about them, perhaps give you some tips to make it easier. So yeah, so I'm just going to start by talking about interviews and CV writing. So first of all, let's just talk about the CV. Now, CV, curriculum vitae, is just supposed to cover everything that defines you as a person. At least that's originally what it was meant to do. But you have to keep in mind that you are a medical student or a medical graduate applying for a medical position. So what I usually recommend is that if you are writing your CV for a medical position, for a medical role, keep it academic. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people kind of fall into. They're going to talk about some experiences they've had. They're going to talk about their hobbies. They're going to talk about the time they volunteered at Global Village or something, just the most random, unrelated things on the planet. Now, these are very good points to have to include, and these are very good things to mention during your interview. But in your CV, just think of how it looks on your CV, and just think of how it affects the value of your CV. If I am a program director and I'm looking at your CV and I see that you've only talked about very briefly about your research work, but you've included an entire section of talking about your hobbies or something, it's not going to look nice. If you're applying for a position that's academic in nature, keep your CV academic in nature. Now, in terms of what exactly to include in your CV, generally speaking, you're gonna there's no true like set in stone format for your CV. But what you can do is just go online and look up just some different CV formats and some different CV layouts you can use. Generally speaking, you're going to have to include a section on your qualifications. So the degree you graduated from, the university you graduated from. Some people like to include their scores, their GPA in their CV. So you can do a section about your scores. In first year, I scored X, in second year, I scored X, in third year, whatever. You're going to have to include, probably most importantly, a section on your extracurricular work. So any electives you've done, any courses you've taken, that's super important to include, and that's usually what people will look at first and what they will be drawn to first. You're going to have to include a section on your research work. Again, arguably the most important part of your CV. Include a section on your research work and anything else that you do want to include. So if you've for example wanted to cover a section that talks about some skills you have, I'm really good at teamwork, data analysis, whatever, sure, include that. But generally speaking, try to keep it as compact as possible, as brief as possible. Some people like to include their photo in their CV. They like to include a lot of colors and everything. It doesn't really make a difference. They don't really look at that much. No one really looks at that much. And the other thing that I wanted you guys to keep in mind is that don't lie on your CV. And I know this sounds kind of basic, but unfortunately, a lot of people do this, and it really puts them in just a unpleasant position, because you will be questioned about any part of your CV. Sometimes, I promise you, I've seen interviewers pick the most unusual, unexpected, like random part of your CV to ask you about. I've seen interviewers ask a person, for example, would include a reference in their CV, and they would ask them about the reference and how is he related to you and when have you worked with him, whatever. They will just sometimes pick the most odd, unexpected part of your CV and ask you about it. So if you lied on your CV on any part, or if you perhaps exaggerated something or didn't report something very accurately, you can put yourself in a really awkward position, just make yourself look very bad in the interview. And just to give you an example of this, I know someone who applied. They were taking a course in a specific language, and they included in their CV that they are proficient in that language and can talk at a fluent conversational level. The thing is, the person would just started out the course. He only understood a couple of words. He barely understood anything. And what he didn't expect was that one of the interviewers spoke that language. And so the interviewers asked him about that language. He asked him a few questions in that language, and it put him in a really unpleasant position to be in. I can't imagine like what it's like to be in that position. I can't imagine how embarrassing it would be. So don't put yourself in that position. Don't include anything in your CV that you can't talk about, anything in your CV that you can't actively defend. If perhaps, let's say you've done a research project or something, but you did it in your freshman year, it was just so long ago, 5-6 years ago, you don't remember anything about it, include it, but go back and read the paper or go back and revise what you covered there, because they will ask you about it. And it happened in one of my interviews. They asked me about the project that I did as a second-year student. By that point, I probably should have completely forgotten it, but I got lucky that I kind of like revised the topic just before the interview, and that really did save me. So just keep that in mind. Don't include anything in your CV that you can't talk about. Don't include anything in your CV that you can't defend. If they ask you any question about any part of your CV, just make sure it's something you can answer. Make sure it's something you can respond to, and try to keep it academic. Try to keep it, topic appropriate. You're a medical student. You're a medical graduate. You're applying for a medical position. There's no need to talk about your passion for cooking or whatever in your CV, because you can mention it in the interview, and that's something I'll cover right now in a bit. But you don't need to talk about your passion for cooking or horse riding or whatever. It doesn't add much to your CV. But that is just like, again, this isn't set in stone. If you do want to include like a small tiny section at the very end about your hobbies or something, it won't hurt you. It won't hurt anyone. You can include it. Again, this isn't set in stone. Go online and look up CV format or CV layout. No two sources are going to give you the same CV layout. It's something that's very variable. It's something that's very personalized. Interviews. Now, I had the unique experience actually of getting to interview some candidates myself. In my hospital, in my internship program, current interns get to interview the applicants for the next year. So I got the chance to actually interview a few applicants, and I can tell you, some insider knowledge about typically what's like expected of you in the interview, what you have to talk about in the interview. Of course, I can't give away too much information. There is some confidentiality that has to be maintained. But the first and most important points, the first 2 points that I wanted to talk about: present yourself appropriately, and if you're on time, you're late. So what I wanted to talk about here was, first of all, presenting yourself appropriately. And this is something that, even though it should be obvious, a lot of people still mess it up badly. So when you go to your interview, don't. So I'm currently wearing a Batman shirt, for example. Don't go to your interview wearing a Batman shirt. It doesn't look professional. It doesn't look appropriate. And again, I'm not telling you to wear a three-piece suit and go there in the most formal wear you can possibly gather together. Just dress appropriately. Wear a nice shirt. Dress formal or business casual, I think is the term you people use. And present yourself in a way that's appropriate. I've seen people enter the interview with sunglasses on. I've seen people enter the interview with their purse in their hand and a coffee in the other hand, and they're finding a place to put their purse and a place to put their coffee, or whatever. That doesn't look good, and that's almost an instant disqualification. And I've seen people get disqualified just exclusively on how they present themselves. So that's something that you have to kind of watch out for. If you're a guy, dress well, wear a nice shirt, a tie maybe, just be as formal as you can possibly be. Again, stay comfortable. I'm not telling you to go wear a full suit. It's not necessary. Just dress nicely. If you have long hair like myself, tie it. Don't leave it loose. If you have, for example, like, get a nice trim before the interviews, if that's what you like, what you desire. But just present yourself well. If you're a girl, again, same thing. Tie your hair, dress appropriately. I mean, you guys are kind of lucky in the sense that you have a bit more options as opposed to just suits. But again, just present yourself nicely and be mindful of how you look and even how your body language is. Don't look careless. Don't have your hands fidgeting around the entire time. Don't keep looking down at the table. Look at your interviewers. Be mindful of how you look and what your body language is conveying. Now, if you're on time, you're late. That's a very important point. If your interview is scheduled for, let's say, 10:30, be there at 9:30. Be there an hour earlier. Now, some of the previous presenters have mentioned the point that, yes, sometimes you might end up doing your interview a bit later than expected, but sometimes you might end up doing it a bit earlier than expected. A lot of people tend to cancel their interviews at the very last minute, and you might end up having to interview a bit earlier than possible. The second thing is, I know a lot of you, for example, might want to interview in Abu Dhabi, but you're living in Ajman or Ras Al Khaimah or something. That's quite a big trip, and you never know what might happen along the way. You might end up having a flat tire. You might run into traffic that you didn't expect. You might take the wrong exit. I'm sure you guys have driven in Dubai before. You know what it's like. Take one wrong exit, you're in a completely different country. So just watch out for that. Try to go early. Try to account for at least being there an hour early. Let's say you do show up an hour early and your interview is not preponed. It's not earlier than you expected. That still gives you a chance to maybe, go and introduce yourself to the people over there. It gives you a chance to maybe walk around the hospital, check something out, grab a coffee, relax a bit, calm your nerves before the interview. So that's like a big point that I really wanted to cover. Try your best to be on time. Some places are really strict with their timings. I know some interviewers who will reject you over a minute or two of lateness. So if you're gonna account, let's say your interview is at 10:30 and you're gonna leave accounting for your arrival being at 10:30, you're already late. Don't try to be on time. Try to be early. Now, know your CV well. I've already kind of covered this point. Don't include anything in your CV that you can't defend. And even if you include something in your CV that isn't, untrue, it isn't false, it's actually something you did, or it's actually something you participated in, but it's been a while, go back, revise it. Just make sure that every part of your CV is something you can talk about. It's something that you can defend. Don't include anything that you can't defend, because if you are asked about it, you will just make yourself look like incredibly unprofessional, and you will make yourself look like you have no idea what you're talking about. And the thing is, you might be a great and amazing student. You might have 10 publications, and then you're gonna get asked about the one publication that's just off. You remember nothing about it, and suddenly you look like you don't know anything you're doing, and you look like you've somehow cheated your way through these publications. So that's a very important part. Now, treat it like a conversation, not an interrogation. This is just in terms of like body language and in terms of like how you appear. try to stay confident. Don't when you're entering the interview, just have the mentality that, hey, I'm just gonna go and have a conversation. I'm not getting interviewed. I'm just going and talking to these people. It's just like talking to my classmates. It's just like talking to my friends. And this is just something to kind of thing is, confidence is very like appreciated by interviewers. It's very appreciated by program directors, and it is a good trait to have. And one way you can convey confidence is to just treat the interview like a conversation. If I'm entering, if I'm talking, if I'm looking them directly in the eye, I'm not nervous. I don't sound nervous. I'm talking to them as though they are my friends. That shows confidence. That's a very good trait to have. It shows them that you're not a nervous wreck. You're not someone who's gonna always break under pressure. It shows them that you are someone who can talk to higher ups in a confident manner, and that's a very good trait to have. It so always try to treat it like a conversation, and don't take it too far. So also don't make it look like you don't care either. Again, this is something that I've seen people kind of fall into. They try to act so confident that it kind of just comes off as being rude and careless. So that's just another point to kind of watch out for. Now, there are just 2 points here that I wanted to cover. I think these are the two most dreaded questions and I think everyone kind of agrees about it. Everyone hates it when you're entering an interview and they ask you the age-old question, tell us about yourself. Usually it's much easier to answer a question directly than to sort of talk about an open-ended topic. And this is something that I've kind of not struggled as much with. And the way I do it is kind of through a mental trick, basically. When someone tells me, tell us about yourself, what I'll do is that in my head, I'll ask myself a question. So let's say I'll ask myself, what's your name? How old are you? Where did you graduate from? Why are you applying to our hospital? What are your interests? So I'll ask myself these questions in my head and I kind of answer them. Of course, I'm saying the questions in my head, but I'm answering out loud. So what is your name? My name is Mohammad. I'm 23. I graduated from Ras Al Khaimah. I'm applying to your hospital because I really like the work you guys do. I'm interested, for example, in internal medicine, and I know that you guys have a very strong medical department. I know that you guys do also train residents, so I expect the quality of teaching to be a lot higher than other institutes. I also know that this hospital has a large number of patients and a very large flow of patients, as well as a large variety of cases. So it's going to allow me to see a lot of cases. My interests do include internal medicine. However, I'm also interested in pediatrics. I'm interested in emergency medicine, and I'm interested in intensive care. So by just asking myself these questions in my head, again, so I'm just going to do it all in one go. And you can see, like, I'm in my head, I'm asking the question, I'm just answering it out loud. So my name is Mohammad. I'm 23. I'm a Ras Al Khaimah Medical Health Sciences University graduate. And I am applying to your hospital because, first of all, your hospital is very well known. It's a very prestigious hospital. It's a hospital that maintains a very high standard of care and high standard of quality. It's also a hospital that is known for a very strong medical department, and I am interested in medicine. And so I hope that this will allow me to encounter a large variety of cases, a higher flow of cases as opposed to what I'm used to in hospitals I've previously worked in. I also know that you guys run residency programs, so I expect the quality of teaching here to be much higher, and I do hope that will allow me to learn a lot better and train a lot better. I'm also hoping to gain a lot of real world firsthand experience, and I'm hoping that your hospital will provide me with that. My main interests include internal medicine, pediatrics, emergency medicine, intensive care, and I also do enjoy to an extent psychiatry, for example. So you see, I answered the question relatively. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think that went relatively smoothly. Even though typically tell us about yourself is the question where we will ask that to an applicant. And again, I've interviewed applicants. We will ask an applicant, tell us about yourself, and they will just tell us their name and just kind of blank out and then stare at us blankly and then randomly bring up facts. So my name is Mohammed and I graduated. So again, ask yourself the questions in your head and answer them out loud. That's the best way to go through with this point, at least in my experience. Now, here's a clinical scenario / vignette. So this is another question that's kind of dreaded because you're always going to like have this mentality of what if they ask me the one thing I don't know? You might be amazing at everything, but then you kind of just suck at that just one body system. You know, you're just not very good at nephrology, and you're worried they might ask you a nephrology question. So one thing I want to tell you guys about clinical scenarios and vignettes is they know you're a student or just a very recent graduate. They know you're not going to be as knowledgeable as perhaps a high level resident or a consultant or a specialist or whatever. They know that your knowledge is limited. They don't expect you to always answer everything correctly, but they want to see your approach to the case. So they want to see that you're able to actually read the case properly. They want to see that you're able to digest the information appropriately. They want to see that you're able to have like a sound critical thinking process. They don't expect you to be right. And I've seen cases where the applicant would answer incorrectly, and we still would find their interview to be a really good one, just because the way they presented their information, the way they presented their thought process, the way they explained their thinking was perfect, was amazing, even though they reached an incorrect answer. And by the way, by incorrect answer, I mean, let's say they present a respiratory case to you. The case is pneumonia, and you tell them, oh, I think this is atelectasis or something, you know, something that can, yeah, fair, like it can be mistaken, sure, whatever. But if they show you a respiratory case and you tell them, oh, I think this guy has kidney failure, then of course that's just bad. But again, you really have to mess up very badly to reach that point. And no, like, let's be honest, if you're good enough to graduate medical school, you're good enough to not make that mistake. So that's the thing. Like, when they do ask you about the clinical scenario, explain your thought process out loud. Show them that you have a sound thought process. They don't care if your final answer is correct. They just care to see what your level of confidence is, what your personality is like, and what your thought process is like. Now, a final point that I kind of wanted to mention, and this is, again, another kind of pitfall that a lot of people find themselves in, is that no, your hobby is not reading medical textbooks. So one thing they will do in interviews is they will ask you, tell us about your hobby, or what do you do in your free time, or what do you like doing, you know, when you go out with your friends or something. I've seen some applicants, what they will do is they're asked about their hobby. They will say, oh yeah, my hobby is doing research and writing systematic reviews and reading textbooks whenever I have free time. That doesn't make you look good. When they're asking about your hobby, again, they're assessing your personality. They're not trying. You're a lot of the times the person interviewing you is a very like high level consultant or a specialist with a lot of experience or something. You're not impressing them by telling them that you read medical textbook in your free time. They've probably read more medical textbooks than you can ever imagine. What they're trying to assess is your personality. So just answer it honestly. They ask you about your hobby. Let's say you like playing football. Just tell them you like playing football. You've played for a club in the past. You've been in an academy in the past. Tell them what position you like to play. Oh, I like to play midfielder or whatever. Be honest. Talk about your hobby. When they ask you about your hobby, they want to know about your hobby. They don't want you to tell them about how you like reading medical textbooks or whatever. So that's just something to watch out for, because when you do tell them that, yeah, I like reading textbooks or something, that just doesn't show character. It shows like a weakness almost, and it shows like almost an insecurity that, hey, like whenever I get the chance, I want to show people that I'm academic or something. Don't do that. They ask you about your hobby, talk about your hobby. They ask you about your interests, talk about your interests. And yeah, that should be it. Now, there are other questions that are typically going to be asked in interviews. Some interviewers will ask you about, talk to us about your strengths. Some interviewers will tell us about your weaknesses. Some interviewers will tell you, will give you ethical scenarios, as one of the previous interviewers have mentioned. So there are other things that are going to be asked in the interview, but again, these are just general tips, just general directors for you. I'm not going to go like in depth on any interview questions. Now, for the internship itself, I think by this point you guys are well aware of what an internship format is like. The second point is one that I wanted to cover because it will come in significance in a bit, but it will usually be over the duration of 12 months. I don't think I've heard of an internship that's less than 12 months or more than 12 months. It's going to be 12 months. It's going to be divided into rotations or blocks, and every single internship program is going to have core blocks or core rotations and then elective ones. And I just want you to keep that in mind. So every internship program is going to give you, generally speaking, it seems to be 2 to 3 months. Some will give you 3 months. My program gave us 3 months. I know others that will give you 2 months only. So that's just something to watch out for. And I think usually the difference seems to be like whether they have or don't have an anesthesia rotation. If they have an anesthesia rotation, it usually ends up being 2 elective rotations. If not, you have 3. Now, how do you make the most out of your internship? The first thing and most important is you will get real-world clinical training. The thing is, I'm sure a lot of you have worked with departments in the past. I'm sure a lot of you have worked with in hospitals in the past as part of your medical schooling or during electives, during observerships. But what you've gotten was not real-world training. Real-world training includes also the ugly parts of medicine. It includes learning how to do documentation. It includes learning how to deal with difficult patients who might complain about you, patients who might give you a really hard time. It also gives you a better insight into like the like logistics and politics that go into like clinical practice. So it's very important. And also another thing is, as a student doing an elective, and you're kind of able to like be flexible with your schedules. You don't know the reality of what a specialty is like and what working in a specialty is like until you're on call, you're in the hospital, it's 1 a.m., you're very tired, and then they call you in to the emergency department for a silly case that you really didn't want to see, but again, you're obligated to see it. So it will give you a bit more of a better and more accurate perspective on what real world clinical practice is like, and that's very important in my opinion. Now, the second thing is that, in my opinion, internship is a really good time to set yourself up for your residency program. You are given elective rotations. You can do these elective rotations in the specialty that you desire to go into for your residency. What this will achieve a few things. The first thing is you will get a better perspective on what it's like to work in that specialty. Perhaps that specialty is not actually for you, and you just didn't realize that because you didn't work in it in like a true work environment. It will also allow you to create better connections with people in that specialty. Even if you're going abroad, let's say you're going to the UK, a lot of UK trained doctors work here. So that's, again, you're connected with people who are trained over there, who can either guide you or connect you with people over there. And I'm sure you guys are well aware of how important connections are when it comes to getting to residency. Now, let's say your plan is to go into a residency program here in the UAE. You can essentially show off what you're like to these residency program directors. If I know, for example, I'm going to go into pediatrics. I'm going to take my elective in pediatrics, and I'm going to work with the pediatrics department, and I'm really going to work hard so I can show them that, hey, if you accept me as a resident, I'm not going to fail you. I am a hard worker. I am someone who has the knowledge, who has the skills. So that's another thing you can do. And I personally know a lot of people who worked during electives, even during core rotations here in like the hospital. And they worked with the residency program directors. And by the time they were done with their elective, they were offered a residency position they were offered an interview by the program director during that elective. So again, it's a very good way to like show yourself off. They will usually, if you're really good, by the end of the rotation, they will tell you, hey, like when the applications open up, when the interviews roll in, come interview with us. I'm gonna accept you. So that's a very important thing. It's a very like good way to utilize your elective rotations as well as your internship. Now, you can also do some research work during your internship. The thing is, in the UAE itself, research work is a bit more limited. But in general, you can still do research work during your internship, clinical or literature-based research. Nothing is stopping you. If there's perhaps a specific specialty you want to work with, you can do research work with them. Learn and get guidance from patients who are in a specialty you are aiming for. Again, this is self-explanatory. Let's say you're interested in general surgery, but your only exposure to general surgery happened as a student. When you're an intern, you can talk to those consultants, to those specialists in the specialty. You can ask them about, hey, what's the specialty like? What's the training period like? What's that work life like? What's the work-life balance like? Which is, I know a lot of people take that into consideration when picking the residency. Finally, it's a good time to complete any pending exams. So the thing is, during uni, you finish your day, you finish your clinical rotation or your lectures or whatever, and then you have to go home and study because you have some exam coming up next week or some assignment coming up or whatever. You don't have that in internship. So yes, you are working during internship, and some rotations are quite intensive. I know it seems to be like a common thing between all internship programs, that like the general surgery rotation, for example, is always a really tough and annoying one to go through. So let's say you are in a rotation, you still have to do your work, yes, but then when you go home, you're not preparing for a university test that's next week or something. So if you have an exam to prepare for, like your PLAB, your EMBRI, your whatever exam you might want to take, now is a really good time to study for it, to prepare for it. Whether it's could also be the Canadian exam, I forgot the name of it, or the US EMILY, or whatever exam you want to take. So it's a really good time to finish any pending exams, and it's a very good time to like sort of set yourself up and prop yourself up for residency. So don't take your internship lightly. Really, it does make a difference. There's so much you can do in internship that will define whether or not you do get into your desired residency program. And I mean, what is the point of going into medicine if not going to a residency program later on, you know? So just keep that in mind. And that should be it. Any questions? So no questions targeted at this, all right. Thank you. So here are just QR codes.
Thank you, Doctor. It was very much useful. Thank you everyone who came to this, and these are the QR codes. You can become a member. And if you have already registered and you're waiting for the official email from the IASSS, it should take some time, and then you can join the WhatsApp groups through which you'll have further updates later. And then if your university does not have a student surgical club, you can contact us at IASSS.UAE@gmail.com, and we can all we can get in contact with you. And I did see that there was a question asked. Okay, I think this is to Dr. Amer. When is a good time to perform MBA exam in your
Yeah,
opinion?
sure. Do I answer it or can you hear
Yes,
me?
Doctor.
Oh, all right, all right. So yeah, in my opinion, just take it whenever is earliest possible without compromising your preparation. What I mean by that is the earlier you take it, the better. However, so I think they start opening up in December and they close in March, and that's the window where you can take your MBA exam. So what I would recommend is try to take it as early as you possibly can. However, let's say taking it in December means that you're going to have to take it with very minimal preparation, with very half-ass preparation. Don't take it. Wait, like prepare first and then take it. So the earliest you can take it without compromising your preparation, that's the best time to take it. Let's say taking it in December means you're going to take it unprepared, don't take it. But taking it in January or February means that you can prepare appropriately and then take it. That's a better time to do your exam. And generally speaking, the earlier you finish it, the better. It gives you, let's say you don't get a very good score, it gives you time to compensate with other things. It gives you a bit of time to maybe participate in courses or research projects or something that might help you a bit more if you don't end up scoring what you aimed for. Overall, though, the MBA exam is a relatively simple exam. It's a relatively easy exam. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be any tougher than any exam that you've taken before. It's just a confidence thing and a stamina thing. It is a long-ish exam, so just prepare to be seated for 3 hours in a row, and you'll be good. I think there's another question actually in chat. So if I have a research paper that is submitted to a journal for publication but not published yet, is it accepted as a publication? I did not go to MBRU. I did not do my MBRU application, so I think someone who did it there might be more appropriate to answer this.
Dr. Suhaila, you can take the lead.
Yes. So let me just read the question. A research paper that is similar to a journal for publication not published. Okay. So regarding this, unfortunately, no, it's not going to be accepted as a publication because, as I mentioned, they require the link to the publication and they require a PDF of the publication. So if you have submitted it to a journal for publication and you're waiting for it, then unfortunately it will not be accepted. But if you have an already published article in a journal, then that will be accepted.
Okay, there's another question to Dr. Suhaila again. In RAKMHSU, the IFORM-CS is written way later in May, so we won't have the results when we apply. Is there anything we can do about that?
Like I mentioned, if your college is providing it, but if it's not within the window, then unfortunately you will have to take it when the application is open for the MBRU because they will not accept it with the results coming after the application. So you will have to do it when the application is open. Either you can speak to your college about your exam and see if there's any kind of negotiation you can come to. But if not, you will have to do it when the applications are open.
I can take this question too. In RAKMHSU, yes, the IFORM-CS is taken in May or in June. It's pretty late. You can talk to the university, and the previous batch had it in. They had taken it in 2 batches. The ones who wanted to submit it to MBRU, they registered and then they had it I believe in April or so. So they were able to submit it within the time frame. So you can talk to the university; they should be able to help you. And there is another question, Dr. Suhaila. Since the GPA is 60% for the selection criteria for MBRU, how much would you consider to be a safe GPA or a good enough GPA?
So, regarding this, I cannot really comment on this because, again, like I mentioned, we don't have like maximum or a minimum when it comes to GPA, as far as MBR is concerned. But when it comes to your shortlisting score, so every year, the shortlisting cutoff changes. So for last year, I believe it was around 87 or something, or 89 or something, and this year, which was when we applied, the cutoff is 87. That means once you have applied your application online, based on your GPA, which is 60%, and your portfolio 40%. So your portfolio is actually 40 points. So and your GPA, whatever you get, like for example in percentage, you type it, and then the system itself will get it converted into a specific number, and that along with the portfolio is your shortlisting score. So out of 100, that score will be. And the cutoff for this year was around 87. That means that whoever got above 87 in the shortlisting score were offered the seat. But again, there were one or two exceptions. So there were people who got 89 and they didn't get accepted. We don't know why. That's why I said the cross-match process is little bit unpredictable. Even though it's written in their website that we will rank students according to their shortlisting scores, there could be one or two exceptions for that. So my advice is not to fall with very close to the shortlisting cutoff. Of course, you can't do anything about your GPA, which is already done in your 4th year. So what you can focus on, like I mentioned, is your portfolio, and try to get the 40 points as it is, like full 40 points in the portfolio. So that was the cutoff for this year, 87. So usually, as far as I know, most of the people below 87 did not get the acceptance. So that is what I can tell about the GPA itself. Any other questions?
Next one is there a specific source for preparing for MRE? Dr. Amer, can you take this question, please?
Yeah, sure. So there have been some documents circulating around which include past papers. Past papers, in my opinion, are the best way to prepare for the MRE because I'll be honest with you, they do tend to repeat some questions, a lot of questions. I've seen it vary from like 10, 15 repeated questions to sometimes up to 60 or 80. So past papers are a very important preparation source. However, to my knowledge, they started reducing that number in later exams, and I think starting next year, they're gonna significantly cut down the number of repeated questions. So past papers might not be the best resource to study. However, they're still worthwhile going through because let's say you've gotten a question on a certain topic from a past paper, you answer the question and then you will go and read about that topic. If they ask the topic again, but in a different question, let's say instead of asking you about the pathophysiology, they're going to ask you about the management. If you read up about the topic, you're going to be able to answer the question still. So it's really good to go through these documents. The other thing is you can just use the same sources that people typically use for international exams. Whatever sources you used for your IFOM, for your lab, for whatever exam it may be, will still benefit you for the MRE. The top scorers that I've seen who like scored really good marks, AMBOSS seems to be what they recommended. Now again, MRE is not like my exam choice. I personally don't aim for like my aim wasn't a significantly high score in MRE, so I didn't take it as seriously. But the people who did take it much more seriously, they did recommend AMBOSS plus past papers. Now, second person asked, which is the best place to intern in your opinion? I can't like really give you a set in stone like exact answer because there are a lot of factors that go into it. You have to take into account first of all relocation. If you live in Al Quwain or Fujairah or Ras Al Khaimah or something, and you want to do your internship in Abu Dhabi, you're gonna have to relocate. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing is whether you're capable of going there in the first place or not. It also depends on like government versus private. Generally speaking, government hospitals are better, but then some private hospitals are also really good to go to. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. It also depends on what you're interested in. So here in Abu Dhabi, for example, some hospitals have better medical departments, some hospitals have better surgical departments. So again, that plays a role in your choice. And whether you can get in or not also plays a role. Let's say you apply to your hospital of choice, but you don't get accepted to it. So again, now you're gonna have to choose a different hospital. So there's no like true like absolute answer to give you for that. The best place to intern is gonna depend on a lot of factors. I can't like just give you an answer.
Okay, doctor, thank you. Dr. Suhaila, there are questions for you. For MBRU, if you get 80%, how would that get converted to points? And then, in your opinion, would it be more than 30 to 40 points?
So again, about the GPA, this is not from our side. We don't know exactly how they are converting it. So it is literally like it's like a tab where you just enter your points, and they like that second it will show you exactly how much it is. So we don't know what type of calculation that they are using. And so of course 60% of your GPA, the higher your score, the better. That's all I can say. I don't really know like if there is a specific cutoff that they are accepting in the GPA. But again, I want to state that that's not the only thing they're looking for. So I know personally of students who have gotten really good grades, like as far as GPA is concerned, but then their portfolio is lacking. So then they did not get an acceptance. So try your best, of course, to score the more, but don't rely on it too much. So just because you got like amazing grades doesn't automatically guarantee you an acceptance. You need to work on your portfolio, you need to work on your CV, because the thing is MBRU does not have interviews, so they're going to be focusing equally on your academics, and they're going to be focusing equally on your portfolio and your CV. So regarding the GPA, I am sorry, but like I cannot tell if there's like a specific point or a grade which will be considered good, but of course the higher the better. But regarding the portfolio, of course I can say confidently like 39 or 40 points out of the 40 that you're getting. 39 is pretty easy to get, because most of the things that are required from the portfolio side is like research and publication, that you have enough time from now. If you start, you will have almost like more than 6 months to work on it. So if you get started now, hopefully when the application opens and closes, by then you have something for each of these categories. But maybe the only thing where you might lose like a point or two is going to be the I-form. So again, prepare for it well. But if you lose those 1 or 2 points, then that's something you can't help. So try to get at least a 38 or 39 in your I-form. And then the GPA, you have to just trust what the system says regarding that.
Okay, doctor, thank you so much. And we'll keep the call open for another 2 minutes for further questions, else we'll wind up.
I wanted to mention something that for as far as the DHA internship is concerned, the information I've gotten till now is that the fees for it is 10,000 dirhams, but the MBR internship is free. So, and MBR internship has a limited seats of around 80. This year it was 80. Last year it was around 70. So they have limited seats, but it is free.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? You can open your mics and ask, or put it in the chat box.
Also, I wanted to mention that in the MBRU application, especially when it comes to the portfolio, there are specific categories where they have mentioned explicitly that you cannot enter more than one entry. So in these areas, please do not add more than one, because they are not going to look at it, and also it's going to give them a very bad impression if you keep like adding. But in areas where they have not specified the number, what you can do is that you can combine multiple PDFs into one PDF, and then you can upload that.
Okay, thank you, doctor. I hope this session was useful for all of you. Thank you to all those who have attended. Thank you for all those who have spent your time, and hopefully this was useful for each and every one of you who attended. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at iaasss.uae@gmail.com. And anything else, you can still hit us up. Thank you so much. See you guys then. Bye.